Good evening, Rabbi. Tonight we're going to discuss a very interesting topic, also a very practical topic. I just had a friend of mine, Baruch Hashem, who just got married last week, and so therefore a lot of questions were coming up regarding, newlyweds, how they have to conduct their life, and so forth and so on. And one of the things he asked about was something which we call in Hebrew, in Judaism, we call it Chanukat Habait. Mm-hmm. Chanukat Habait. So you hear the word Chanukah, right?
Yes.
Hanukkah, right?
Yes.
So what's the connection between Hanukkah and this? What's the? So the truth is, the word Chanukah in Hebrew means dedication, dedicate something, inauguration. That's what it means. The word Chanukah. So what does that mean? That when you dedicate, you inaugurate something to use it for the first time, it's called Chanukah. So the usually what we talk about is when you say you use the Chanukah, we're talking about dedication or inauguration of a temple which was just built, or a synagogue, or things like Bet HaMikdash, tabernacle, things like this. The first time you use it, that's called Chanukah, inauguration of the premises, right, of that temple, whatever you're doing, right. So the truth is that this concept doesn't only apply to temples, it also applies to houses, right? That's the interesting thing. So what does that mean? When you go into a new house, there is a concept like this in Judaism to do Chanukat Habait. What does that mean? To inaugurate the house. That's what it means, right? So the question is, what is it for? How do you do it? So forth and so on. We're going to explain tonight, B'ezrat Hashem, God willing, right? What the whole concept is here. The truth is, that this is not an obligation from the Torah to do Chanukat Habait. So what does that mean? When you buy a home, or you rent a home even, you're not really obligated to do Chanukat Habait. But it's a minhag, it's a custom, And the question is, why does this custom exist? Right? We have to understand what the reason is for it. So, what they say, right? The Kabbalists, the Mekubalim, they talk about the issue that when a person goes into a home, what happens is that the behavior of those dwellers that were there beforehand makes an influence on the home. So what happens is that influence seeps into the atmosphere there, and therefore, if there was some bad things that went on there, that went down over there, as they say, right, that will influence you when you enter there. You'll feel it, and it will have some kind of influence. So therefore, what we want to do is that when we're going into a new home, we want to remove that history, that past history there. Those bad spiritual influences that were, absorbed into the walls of that place by the behavior of your last, right, the last dweller that was there, the former dweller. So there's also another thing, which a person has to understand, right? This happens especially, and also in other cases as well, when you build a new home, right? Construction, new house, right? What happens is that naturally, a new home, dwell there, like mazikin, in other words, it's haunted, right? Excuse my language, right? There's ghosts over there, there's demons over there, there's harmful agents. Demons and things like this, they like to hang out, where? Places which are deserted. So that place has been deserted, because nobody dwells there yet. So what happens is that until you come in and dwell there, those demons make their home there. So this is also another reason why there's bad influence in a home which was newly built, or also it was vacated and left vacant for a while, So what happens is that the mazikim come in there and they dwell there. The harmful agents, right? Harmful souls, whatever, all kinds of things. Ghosts and ghouls and goblins, whatever, right? Whatever you want to call those things. Right? So that's the way it is. So what happens is that we have several methods in Judaism to remove those harmful effects, whether it's the demons or all kinds of things, or the past dwellers that did all kinds of bad things there, some sinful behavior, whatever it was, right? So the first thing we do, right, number one, is that the Torah commands us, when you move into a new home, whether it's owned or rented, you have to put mezuzot. Why do we put mezuzot? What's the reason why? By the way, what's in the mezuzah, right? What's there? We have two paragraphs over there from the Torah, right? Shema Yisrael V'hayem Shamua, right? 2 paragraphs from Mishkiyat Shema. That's what's there.
Yeah.
That's what you have there.
Yeah.
2 paragraphs, right? So what's the purpose of putting that on the mezuzah, on the house, on the doorposts? The purpose is to drive out those bad influences, right? Those demons. Because once they see the name of God, they run, They're afraid of that.
Where are these demons from? Are they souls of the dead, or what?
No, maybe 108th Street. Maybe they create them over there.
Yeah.
I'm joking. Maybe they come from the Bronx. I don't know exactly.
Because from what we're told, after you're dead, you're gone. Like
Right.
you taught us that even in the cemetery, basically, there's no communication between you and.
Well, that's a different discussion, but I'm not going to get into the cemetery issue now. But the point is, right, like this, right, that there are spiritual beings that don't have a body. Those are called demons. They don't have a body. They're just souls.
They never did?
They're spirits, right? They never did, right?
They never did.
Yeah, they never did. So those are called demons. In Hebrew, we call that shadim. Right? Shin Daled. Shin Daled is what they are, right? So these are beings that are all kinds of, also harmful angels, all kinds of things. There are spiritual beings that have no body.
I feel them at home.
Oh, wow.
They whisper in my ear.
Oh, my God.
They touch me sometimes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
We got to talk about that one.
Yeah.
Now you tell me. You should have told me 40 years ago.
Ever since I moved into that apartment.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I have mezuzot everywhere.
Wow. That's very fascinating. Yeah. We got to talk about that. But before we get into that, right, we're talking about the general issue, right? Which is that, as we said, right, you come into a home, and the first thing you have to do is put mezuzot. That's from the Torah. The Torah commands us that every room has to have a mezuzah. Except the bathroom, obviously, right? You don't put mezuzah in the bathroom. Because it's a dirty place. It's a filthy place. You don't put mezuzah over there. But where do you put mezuzah? In the bedroom, in the living room, dining room, right? The main entrance to the home. Right? All these places require mezuzah. Right? All the rooms of the house, basically, more or less, right? Depending on the size also, depending on all kinds of things. But more or less, right, you require mezuzah everywhere. We gave a lecture, by the way, last year about the laws of mezuzah. We gave several lectures about that. Short ones, long ones, right? You can refer to those and see, there's a lot of things that we talked about. There's probably more to talk about as well. We have to cover more of these laws. But, just to make the simple idea, when you put the mezuzot, that drives them away. But, right, what the smart thing to do is like this, right? Like my friend just did, who just got married. What he did was, he didn't just go home, and put the mezuzot wherever he feels like. He did a video WhatsApp with me, and he showed me, okay, where do I put it? Here, look at this. Does this place need a mezuzah? So, I know pretty much more or less these laws. So I told him I had to put it there, you have to put it here, you have to put it there. Here you don't put it. That's the idea, So, some of the things we have to look up also. Some things we don't know. Some you got to look in the books. You got to look and find out what's going on, right? So the point is like this, right? That the mezuzot pretty much do the job, of removing the mazikim from that place. So therefore, the truth is, that as we said, right, we have this ceremony called Chanukat Habait. What does that mean? Inauguration of the house. So the whole point of this inauguration is to drive out those bad influences from there, right? So the truth is that the custom is, when a person moves in Israel, this is what the religious people do over there, especially the Sephardi community, Ashkenazim not so much. But what the Sephardim do, some of the Ashkenazim have learned from the Sephardim, they adopted this custom as well from the Sephardim in Israel, So what we do is like this, right? We move into a home. So the first day that you move in Israel, you put the mezuzot and you make Chanukat Habait, you make a ceremony. Everything gets done together, like in one shot. So this is a great thing to do, right away when you move in. Why? Because if you wait longer, you can already harmful effects, be affected by all these things. Yeah.
How do they bother us? What do they do? I mean,
they, what? I'll give you an example, right? What does it say in the words of Chazal? In the Talmud, you find that when a person goes through a doorway, right? And there's no mezuzah there. So what happens is that those harmful agents are there, waiting to harm him. When he passes through. So they harm him. They do some harm, whether it's spiritual or physical. They harm him. So there's all kinds of harm that a person can get. It can be it can have an accident, fall down, or get sick, all kinds of things. You never know what's going to happen, right? There are some people who also died from these kinds of things. They died. Right? There are stories like that as well.
There should be one in the lobby of a building, you think?
Well, that's an interesting question, right? And you know what the simple answer is? That if the building is mixed Goy and Jew, we don't put mezuzot over there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Only if it's a Jewish building, like in Israel.
Yeah.
Then we put. That's something else. You know what I mean? Because we don't put mezuzot in a place where Goy dwells. Because it's not their mitzvah, it's our mitzvah. You know what I mean? This is the basic answer. Yeah. So your lobby does not require mezuzah, that's for sure, right? Because it's mixed, 50-50, right? 50% Jew, 50% Goy, God knows whatever it is, right? So, but, regarding, by the way, your home, we have to look at that, right? If the mezuzot are in the right place. And also if the mezuzot are good. Depending on where you bought them. I don't know exactly where you got them. You know what I mean? Where did you purchase your mezuzot when you bought them?
I think the first one was put there by... I think my aunt brought those.
Right. Question is from where?
Yeah, from a reputable source.
From where?
And I had it checked just not recently.
Yeah, you had it checked. Yeah.
Yeah, I had it checked up.
Who checked it?
A few years ago. Aaron checked it.
Ooh. Okay. All right.
So, I don't know.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess they're okay.
Can we check it? Are we allowed to check it?
Only if you know the rules, you know the laws. If you know, you can check it. If you don't know.
You can't just open it and see if nothing is.
You don't know how to check it. It's a profession.
Oh.
It's like can I go out and make be a dental technician? I don't know how to do it. Who trained me to do it?
I understand if the letters are intact.
Right, but what does that mean to be intact? That's the question, right? There's rules about that. You know what I mean? What does that mean to be intact?
If they're all visible and not.
Right, but that requires expertise. There are laws about that.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, that's a profession in itself.
Mm-hmm.
So fair. A person is so fair. He knows how to do these things. Not everybody knows how to do these things. You have to learn the rules, the laws. You have to learn all these things.
And he knows them, you think?
He doesn't. I don't think he checks them himself. He takes them.
Oh, okay.
To a
Yes,
place.
you're right. You're right.
He doesn't do it himself. He's just a middleman.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's okay.
Okay.
You gotta make a living.
Yep. Okay. So what do you call it, right? So as we said, the first thing they do in the Chanukat Habait, is to do the mezuzot. Make sure you put them in the right place. They have to be in the right place. Otherwise, it's like you have it in your pocket. Doesn't help. You know what I mean? That's what you got to check in your place if you have it in the right place. That's one thing, right? Number two, Chanukat Habait also involves several other mitzvot that they do. The main thing they do in Chanukat Habait, you know what it is? Not today, by the way, like today, the main thing they think is to make a nice dinner, they should get together and eat, eat some fancy foods. That's not the point, Chanukat Habait. So much to have a fancy dinner over there, you know what I mean? The whole point is that they bring some foods, some mezonot, some fruits, some, cake, whatever, to make brachot, to make blessings. That's nice. It's a good idea, nothing wrong with that. But that's not the main idea of Chanukat Habait. You know what I mean? The main idea is to learn Torah over there. Why is that? Because once you learn Torah in a place, it drives out all the bad influences from there. That's why now this place is clean, right? We learned Torah over here. We cleaned it up. All the bad stuff that was here, we cleaned it out already. And also, by the way, when I came in to this place, I also changed the mezuzot. They were in the wrong places.
In the wrong place.
So I told Yasha, move this one. He moved it. This one was in the wrong place.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be where
you're coming into the right side.
Coming in.
As you come in, it should be on the right side, right?
As you're coming in.
Right into the from the street.
It doesn't matter which way the door is opening.
That's not the first issue that we look at. We don't look at that yet.
Okay.
Unless there's other issues involved there.
So as you're entering the dwelling.
Right. It has to be on your right.
Okay.
Yes,
very
yes. But it has to also, the height has to be good, the location, the
good.
placement.
Yeah. So then
There's a few
Shalva
things
put
there.
it in the wrong place.
Who put it?
Shalva.
Shalva did it for you?
It was in the right place and he put it in the wrong place.
Wait, so you're telling me that in your main entrance.
Yeah, mine entrance, it's in the wrong
It's on the left side?
Yeah, it's on the left side. Yeah.
You better change it tonight. I'll help you with that. If you want, I'll come over and I'll help you out with that. Or you can WhatsApp me, I'll tell you what to do.
Okay.
Whatever, we'll take care of it. Don't worry about that. Consider it done.
Yeah. All right.
But you gotta bring me over if you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we have to make sure you're in the right places in the mezuzah, right? That's the idea. If you put it on the left side, no good.
Well, I don't know what made him do that. I mean,
Crazy, I don't know. He's not a rabbi. You have to ask a rabbi.
No, but you should an observant guy who keeps Shabbat.
It's not enough to be observant. You have to know how the halachot. Rabbi's a rabbi.
It's very simple halakha.
It's not so simple. It's also mezuzah. Even most rabbis don't know these laws.
There's only left or right. I mean,
There's a lot more than that. There's a lot more than that.
No, that you're entering a place, it's supposed to be on the right
Yeah,
side.
okay, well, he doesn't know.
I think
he's
he
not a rabbi,
got fooled because my door opens like this.
Right. He thought it was by that.
Yeah,
It doesn't work
it's
like
not.
that.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, we'll talk about that. We'll straighten it out. Don't worry. Maybe that's why you're feeling all kinds of things going on there.
I was feeling those things even when it was in the right place.
Okay, whatever. We'll talk about
What
that.
happened was when I had them checked out,
Yeah.
he came over one day and when he put it back for me,
Right.
and he did the blessing, he put it on the wrong side.
Okay, well, we'll take care of that. Bezrat Hashem. We'll take care of that. So, interesting thing is like this, right? The what works also to drive out all the bad influences is learning Torah in that house. So what they do is they bring a minyan of people. That's the custom, right? By the way, there's a book that describes how to do Chanukat Habait properly. It's quite like an ancient book. I mean, not that ancient, but it's called Kuntras Yechieli, right? It's written by a big Chacham, big Sephardi Chacham. Over there, it tells you exactly what has to be done. That's where we learn these laws from, about how to do Chanukat Habait. So what happens is that there's like special sidurim also, that are made for Chanukat Habait, special sidur. So over there, it tells you like what to learn, what passages from the Torah to learn, So what they do is they divide them up into 10 people. Each one reads a little bit, reads a little bit here and there.
I turned this off. It's my son. Yes, Daniel.
So you have to.
Yes. Nothing. I'm at the Bible study. Everything okay? Yes. Okay. No problem. Bye.
Try to put
I
on
turned
silent
it
mode.
off. I'm surprised that.
Believe me, nothing will happen if you answer later. Nothing will happen. No.
No.
No harm will happen from that.
I know, but I don't understand how I. Okay.
Don't worry about that.
I never turned it off.
Okay, so as we're saying, right, that learning Torah is a very important thing. What it does, it drives out all the bad influences from the house. So what they do is divide it up into 10 sections. Each person reads a little section of the Torah, and this way they knock it off pretty fast. So what they do is they sit there, each one has a sidur, and they knock it off really, really fast like that. Takes like, let's say a half hour, they finish everything, And that's already another element of the Chanukat Habait, to drive out the bad influences by learning Torah there, That especially works when you have a minyan, because the minyan is stronger, 10 people, 10 men. But it says Kuntras Yechieli, if you don't have a minyan, at least bring 3 people, that's also good, But the truth is that, learning Torah works like, even if you do it by yourself. In other words, if you don't have, let's say now, enough people to bring over, you're waiting to get a minyan to bring over. Meanwhile, you should learn Torah yourself over there, and this can also do the trick. It'll drive out the bad influences, So learning Torah is one of the main issues.
If I watch one of your lectures for an hour, is that considered learning?
That's
Torah?
also, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, sure. It's even better. What they do is they say it themselves, So this way, it's like physically happening there, It's even better, right? Even more effective. So that's one of the things that they do for Chanukat Habait, to learn Torah. There's also 2 more things that they do, right? What is it? That they give tzedakah. Also, that's what's in the Kuntras Yechieli. They should bring some kind of a cause, charitable cause, collect money for it, and collect tzedakah. So when they do all these things that we just mentioned, which is what? they make blessings, to eat some food. They make blessings. Those it's holiness there. Tzedakah, to give charity to some cause, and as we said, right, learning Torah, and putting the mezuzot, all these things, all together, right, you have beautiful Chanukat Habait. That's what it's all about, Chanukat Habait. So once a person does all these things, especially if he does it with a minyan, this is very, very powerful. Drives out all the bad influences from his home. It's an amazing thing. So that's what we do in order to solve this problem. There's also another thing that people do, in order to, if they know, let's say, for instance, that the house had some bad issues going on there, there was some bad vibes going on, all kinds of bad influences. Let's say, for instance, like they say, if there was a home where, there was a lot of strife going on, like fighting, and like very unpleasant behavior, fighting all the time, conflagrations, all kinds of yelling, screaming, all kinds of hatred, and between the husband and the wife, all kinds of things like this. So what they say is that also, besides doing the Chanukat Habait, it's a good idea to paint the house. Tell Jeff about that. Right? It's a good idea to paint the house. Right? Why is that? Because when you refresh and renew and renovate, it takes out the bad influences from the place. That's also another way to do it, right? Another trick. So they say, when you do all these things, that's a very powerful way to get rid of all your problems in the home. If you have all kinds of bad influences. Now the question is like this, right? Is this, as we said, we already mentioned in the beginning, is this an obligation? Not really, right? It's just a minhag, it's a custom. But it's a very good custom in order to, to solve the problems that we have with homes that have, bad influences. There's all kinds of stories about this, like you see in the press, haunted home, all kinds of things. Where does that come from? Because sometimes the truth is it's really haunted. There's some bad influences going on there. Because there were some sins down there, some, terrible things that went on. Maybe somebody was killed, there was a murder, all kinds of stuff like this. So this has a bad influence on the place, and this is the reason why a person needs to do it. Now the question is like this, right? When you buy a home, that's one thing. But what about when you rent, right? That's the question. Does rental also require Chanukat Habait? According to what we said. So the truth is, that some people don't do Chanukat Habait when they rent, because it's not really their home, So they don't really care so much about it. But the truth is that we heard from Ram Sharabi, Ram Mordechai Sharabi, who was a big Kabbalist of his generation, and we heard in his name that he said that a person should do it also in a rented house, Chanukat Habait. So what does that mean? That even though it's not really yours, but that's not the issue. The issue is that you're living there, and you have some kind of ownership during the rental. It's yours, in some way. So what does that mean? Since you're living there and somewhat yours, so you have to get rid of the bad influences as well. It doesn't really change anything. So therefore, it said Rabbi Sharabi that a person should also do it in a rented house as well. That's the idea.
Yeah.
So if a person does all these things, even in a rented home, very, very good idea to do all that. To do all these things. This way he'll get rid of all the bad influences and all the good things will happen. And by the way, this is the reason why, we talked before we started the lecture, about a couple of things, which are related to what we're talking about here. But you asked me the question about going to a church, or going to a place where they're doing a ceremony there, or going to, let's say, a shopping mall, some kind of a store. It also has to do with this. And the reason is because when you go to a place like that, every place has a certain, atmosphere that you absorb when you go there. So that's why it's not a good idea to go to a place which has a bad atmosphere. Because what happens is you absorb it, and you leave there, and some of it goes with you. So that's why a person, who is sensitive, his soul is sensitive to these things. When he goes to a place where there's bad atmosphere there, spiritually bad atmosphere, he gets influenced by that, and he wants to leave. He feels uncomfortable there, And then when he leaves, he feels like he's been harmed, He's been like scathed, He's been, He's been sullied by the influence there. Something came with him, bad influence. So that's why a person shouldn't go to a place like that, right? And that's exactly why the Chazal tell us not to go into a church. What's the problem with going to a church? The problem is that because they do idolatry over there, So there's a lot of bad influences going on there. All the demons, all the bad, all the child molesters, the cardinals.
If you ask them, it's a holy place.
Oh yeah, a lot of molestation goes on. Very very holy molestation goes on there, right? So what happens is that when you go there, you pick up those things and they go with you. When you leave, so it affects you. It does harm to your soul. And what they say is that if a person is regular to do it on a regular basis, it'll affect him. And he'll start to have like feelings. For idolatry. Some kind of things like this. I was just speaking to one of my friends. I'm not going to mention his name, right? But he asked me an interesting question. We were talking over there about. We were talking with him. There's a certain movie that he watches. And has to do with idolatry. But he says I like the music. That what I'm talking about, right? He says I like the music in there. So he told me, he says, can I listen to that stuff? So I told him, don't listen to it. Don't watch those movies because they affect you. You may think that doesn't do nothing, but it does. It slowly seeps into your heart, the influence from that. And it corrupts you. It pollutes your soul. When you have this kind of thing. I hope you understood what I was telling him. So it's the same idea. When you get into a place where there's bad influence, that's why we don't want to go. To a church, obviously, right? Not allowed to go in there. They say, by the way, that when it comes to a mosque, you could go because it's not really idolatry there, But the truth is, today, it's not really such a good idea because there's animosity between, you may get hurt, somebody may hurt you there, and then you get killed, So I tell people, if they ask me should I go to a mosque, I said you can go, but just make sure you don't get killed. You know what I mean? So you don't really want to go there, it's not a good idea. But definitely going to a church is much, much worse, right? Why is that? Because over there it's idolatry. It's a different thing altogether, right? It's heresy and idolatry in a very powerful way, in a very, 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 very strong way. So that's why we don't want to go to a church. It's because of the influence that it has. So what does that mean? Every place, has its influence. And it builds up from the activity that goes on there. So that what now the whole thing is like this, that when you go to a place like a shopping mall, or a place like that, it also has, that material influence there, too much materialism, and it also does damage to a person, that he hangs around these places. So it's not a good idea to hang around, in places like this, like, the kids used to do, go over here, let's go to this mall, let's go to that mall. In those places, the influences are not good. You know what I mean? The same idea. Because it's already like, absorbed into that place, that culture, that vile culture that goes on there. Same thing, by the way, also, I want to tell you, that regarding, I want to discuss also the issue of going to a cemetery, right? We talk about this. So the truth is, that according to halakha, obviously there's no prohibition to go into a cemetery. I'm talking about, a Jewish cemetery, right? What about going to a Goyish cemetery, by the way? What's halakha regarding that? So the truth is, that Rav Chaim Vital, he writes from the name of the Arizal that you shouldn't go in there, into a Goyish cemetery. What's the reason why? It's not idolatry over there. So what's the reason why? They say that you may get harmed by that. What does that mean, harmed? That those spirits that are there, the dead body, the dead people, some of those souls, because they see you're a Jew coming in there, they may try to harm you. Can you imagine? So therefore, says Rav Chaim Vital that a person shouldn't go into a Goyish cemetery, a Jew. Shouldn't go in there. So try to avoid that if possible. Even though we don't find this in the halakha brought down so much, but a person should try to avoid it. But the thing is now, what about cemeteries in general, right? Even a Jewish cemetery. So the truth is, according to the Kabbalah, a person shouldn't go to any cemetery for no reason. In other words, he has to have a very good reason to be there, some kind of real justification, otherwise it should not be there. Why is that? Because there's bad influences over there. There's bad demons, bad spirits, bad souls, all kinds of people, all kinds of criminals, that were buried there, and their souls are hovering over there. So those, all kinds of harmful things going on. What happens is that when you go there, they cling to you, and when you leave, they also accompany you out. So what happens is that when a person goes to a cemetery, he does get harmed by the influences over there. So therefore, Maran Ravadi Shalom used to tell us that he himself doesn't go. He didn't go even to his parents' graveyards, the cemetery to visit them. Even on their yahrzeit, he didn't go. He said, no, I don't want to go there. So he said, it's much more beneficial to the deceased, to read Mishnayot, to read Divrei Torah for them, the sons of the deceased, to say Divrei Torah or things like this, to say Kaddish. Which one is better, by the way, Kaddish or Divrei Torah? Divrei Torah is much better than Kaddish, even though Kaddish is also very helpful. But Divrei Torah is much more helpful than Kaddish. But nevertheless, whatever it is, he says it's much more beneficial to do that outside of the cemetery and not go to the cemetery. Because what happens is when you go to the cemetery, even though you're going there for your parents, you do get some kind of bad influence going in there.
I see.
And that's why they say the Gaon of Vilna, right, who was one of the great rabbis of the last 300 years, they say to him, they said to him like this, brought down. They said to him, Rabbi, why don't you go to your mother's grave, and visit her, and she will get lots of nachas from you. Nachas. Nachas means, right? Gratification, from seeing you over there. Her soul. So you know what he answered, right? Gaon Vilna. He said, she'll get nachas, but I'm going to get harmed from that. So, I don't want to give her nachas if I'm going to be harmed, That's why, so the Gaon Vilna also didn't want to go. So the truth is, that amongst the Kabbalists, amongst the Mekubalim, the rule is, that they don't go to cemeteries unless there's no other choice. There's reason to be there, which is very critical to be there. Otherwise, they don't go. Right? That's the idea. So therefore, what should a person do? As a general rule, you should try to avoid going to the cemetery. Even though it's not forbidden according to halakha. So same thing, because of the bad influence that goes on there. This is the reason why. And the cemetery, by the way, is one of the worst places. Because there's a lot of all kinds of polluted souls going on over there. All kinds of polluted spiritual influences going there. By the way, they say that the most harmful thing, what it is, regarding a cemetery, is when a woman goes there. That the bad influences, the demons, they cling to the woman more than the men. You know why that is, by the way? Why the women have more problem with them than the men? Can you guess why?
You told us once.
You know what the reason is? Because women are more susceptible to the side of evil than men are.
Right.
What's the reason for that? Because they're closer to that side. That's what Gaon Vilna says, right? It says in Gaon Vilna, the women are naturally closer to the side of evil. And that's why, right, they say the Chazal, most sorcerers, right, magicians, are they men or women? Except that guy. Most of them are women. Why is that? Because they have like a natural affinity for that. It's their natural side. It shines out when they go. That's the idea, right? So most magicians, most witches are women. There are also some men that do it, but usually it's a ladies' thing,
I see. In the movies, it's kind of equal. In those fantasy movies, there's plenty of men doing sorcery as much as the
right.
women.
But it's something interesting, right? It's brought down in Pirkei Avot also, this thing. It says in Pirkei Avot, that if you take too much of something, you can get harmed, right? So, what it says? Marbe Nashim, Marbe Kishuf. You know what that means? If you have a lot of wives, in those days they used to marry multiple wives. So it says in Pirkei Avot, if you take Marbe Nashim, lots of wives, so then what are you bringing to your home? Lots of sorcery.
It's okay.
You may think it's okay, but
as long as they're obedient.
Yeah, you may think it's okay, but the truth is, sorcery is a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
It can kill somebody. You can get killed.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
By the way, one of the main purposes of sorcery is to kill people.
Gotcha told
That's the whole point.
That he could get me somebody that could perform sorcery
Yeah.
and get me what I wanted, but then there's a warning.
Right, there's a price to pay.
There's a price to pay. Yeah.
Of course, there's a price to pay, right? And the truth is, that sorcery is a very dangerous thing.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? A person should stay away from somebody like that. Not have any contact.
I have a question about having multiple wives. And I'm sure your viewers...
So by the way, regarding that, right,
Yes.
before you ask your question, why is it that if you have lots of women, you're going to have lots of sorcery? You get the point, what it is?
They're going to be at each other's throat.
So how does that make a lot of sorcery?
Well, I don't know. They're going to be cursing each other. The jealousy amongst each other.
So what do you care? But you know what it is? The truth is that you should care because it's going to harm you.
Sure.
Why is that? Because their sorcery is for one purpose, basically, when they have multiple wives. You know what it is? To get the man to fall in love with her as opposed to the other wife. You know what I mean? So each one is doing a spell on the husband, to get him to fall in love with her. So all these spells, they could kill the guy.
What if you tell them, I promise you, I love every one of you equally?
Yeah. You think they're going to listen to that?
I have a question. I don't know, it just...
So you get the point?
Absolutely.
The competition makes them do more sorcery.
Sorcery, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's always like that. And it's a natural thing, actually, to feel jealousy.
Right, but you know what it is? That when it comes to women, it comes to fruition, the jealousy with sorcery. That's what,
sorcery,
because it's their natural side.
When this thing was allowed, or today, I don't know if men bring multiple wives up, what does it say in the Torah about having relations with those wives? Like, can you do it? Can you have an orgy?
Well,
with
can you
them?
have harem?
Yeah. Can you have relations with them?
That's
at
a
the same
very,
time?
Jojo, it's a very good question what you're asking. I don't take it as a joke. I take it very seriously.
I never thought about it.
Yeah.
But it's a serious thing.
So you know what the answer is to that question? That a person really shouldn't be doing like a harem thing, even if he has multiple wives.
You
know why? What's the reason why? Because that'll turn them into lesbians, and they're not allowed to do that.
I see.
Understand? In other words, women are not allowed to be lesbian. They're not allowed to play with each other. So if you have a harem, it's going to come out like that. And this is the problem. This is why you're not supposed to do it.
So it's supposed to be intimate.
Right, one by one. Right. There's also another reason why, by the way, you shouldn't have a harem. You know what the reason? You know what the reason is? It's a very powerful reason, by the way, which is that what happens is that sometimes you can have like several women together in one shot, and you're having intercourse with one, but you're thinking about the other one who's next to you. You know what I mean? So this can cause that defects in the child.
You could do that without the other ones being there also.
Right, but that's a lot more likely. When they're all together. Like you're looking at this one, you're looking at this one, you're getting all confused.
Yeah.
So, but the truth is, according to halakha, when a person has relations with his wife, he's supposed to be thinking about only her, not any other woman. Why is that? It'll cause birth defect to the child, spiritual defect.
Can he have relations?
Defect.
Can he have? It's probably what happened with me and him. Is a man allowed to have relations with all of them, whether it's 5 of them or 20 of them, the same night or the same day?
As long as we said, right, each one has his own separate, But the truth is that the Shulchan Aruch talks about this, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
It talks about it. So what it says is that let's say you have like 4 wives, right? Let's say 4,
Yeah, moderate.
Right. So a moderate polygamy, right?
Moderate polygamy. Yeah.
So what you should do is give each one like 1 week, this week is for you, this like that, right? You divide it up. The chores get divided up into.
Do you think that there is anything more male chauvinistic than a man bringing many wives?
Well, we don't look at it that way, like the modern people do.
Because
the reason why
women came forward who
were
married to the same man, and they came forward and they said that they were emotionally traumatized by this.
That's interesting. Some women, by the way, do like it. Actually, they like it.
All right.
Having that group feeling.
They're probably ex-porn stars. That's why. They got used to it so much.
That's funny. So basically, right. That's the idea. That
Like it,
So you want to have always your attention to one woman at a time. So the question is like this, right? We'll finish up with this. Then why did the Jews, the Jewish culture, the Jewish religion, the Jewish rabbis, why did they decree, or make an enactment that you shouldn't have multiple wives?
Oh, I didn't know
Because
that
now
was decreed.
there is an enactment like that. Yeah,
When
of course.
was this decreed?
This was decreed already 800 years ago by the Ashkenazim, but then the Sephardim also joined in later on, more or less. So today it's like almost universal.
It's forbidden?
It's almost universal.
It's
yeah.
forbidden,
Yeah.
or it's
It's forbidden.
Just tells you to
It's
stay
forbidden.
away from it.
It's written in the Ketubah. You're not allowed to take another woman. It says in the Ketubah. But what I'm trying to tell you is like this, right? That
Who wrote the ketubah?
the rabbis wrote the Ketubah. So, Maran Rabbi Danielov, he told us the main reason why they made this enactment, not to have multiple wives, you know what it is? Because they get jealous of each other, they fight. It causes fights.
Yeah, but this was decreed by who at the time? That you could
Because
have-
they saw that there was a lot of fighting going on, And they saw there's a lot of
Who
jealousy,
allowed it
rivalry.
from
The Torah allows it.
The Torah
allows it, yeah.
Allows
But the rabbis came and said, we can't allow that anymore because the situation is getting out of hand.
I see.
So what happens is they get jealous of each other, and sometimes that even harms the man because
Absolutely.
they're driving him crazy from both sides.
Yeah, that's why these women came forward. I mean, they weren't Jews. I think they were
Yeah,
Mormons.
right.
But they came forward and they said that it was just emotionally unbearable.
So the Chazal say something funny. I'll finish with a joke, right? It's from the Chazal, this joke. It's from Gemara. Right? But it's actually true also. It's a joke, but it's true. Right? It's halakha. So, they say, right? They say good advice to a man. If you have two wives, take a third one also, Take a third one.
I see.
Right? Why? If you could guess this, you're a genius, right? So you know why? Says the Gemara, if you have two, take three, better. Why? Because they say, if they make a plot to kill you, two of them, the third one will reveal it to you and tell you and save your life.
Okay.
So you see what the point is?
Yeah.
They get so jealous of each other, they could wind up killing you.
I see. Now let me ask
That's
you,
exactly why they made the enactment not to do it anymore.
I see. Now let me ask you this. If I decide to do it, can you amend the law back to what it was?
We'll talk about that.
800
Depends
years.
on how much you pay. You gotta pay enough for that. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen, amen. Chazak Baruch. Be blessed with health, wealth, and happiness. Amen, amen, amen. Chazak ve'amat.
Interesting.